We have an amazing group of people on stage, and we're going to break down one of the more significant tornadoes and events and things that happened afterward. But before we do that, I kind of want to go from starting with you, Jordan, and kind of everyone introduce themselves, and then we're going to start diving into things. And I'm just going to break down a little bit more. But Jordan, go ahead.
My name's Jordan Hall. I live in Norman, Oklahoma, and I'm a full-time storm chaser and video broker.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sierra Lindsay. Me and Jordan chase together full-time. We live together in Norman. I moved there this year and started committing to full-time chasing with them.
I chased with Eric Toe, and Joe Badger was with us that time.
I'm Eric Toll. I'm a member of Lone Star Storm Chasers and Live Storms Media, and we was in Rolling Fork that night.
I'm Joe Baza. I live just north of Dallas over here. I kind of chase alone, and sometimes I chase with Eric over here and a friend over here, Dave Blackman, and I also run around with these Lone Star Chaser guys.
April Nicholson from Rolling Fork, Mississippi.
Molly Ruth.
She's from Anguilla, Mississippi.
I'm Gwen Dew. I'm Molly Ruth's mom and live in Anguilla, Mississippi, which is just north of Rolling Fork.
I'm Brad Nicholson. I'm April's husband, and I'm from Rolling Fork, Mississippi.
All right, so I think everyone knows what we're going to talk about right now, which is the Rolling Fork tornado. But before we get there, as you know, a broadcast meteorologist, but as storm chasers, yes, you know, understanding the atmosphere, seeing a tornado, understanding the science of it, it's fascinating. But the absolute last thing in the world that we ever want to see is a tornado on the ground destroying and hitting towns. That's the absolute worst. And I know many of you are responsible storm chasers, and as soon as you see a storm, you call it in, you report it, which is great because the most important role that you play is ground truth. But then you come up to some of the most horrific scenes. You're almost beat the first responders. And unfortunately, the Rolling Fork tornado was a very unique tornado. So for those of you who don't know the Rolling Fork tornado, it occurred on March 24th of last year. It was a high-end EF4 tornado. The peak wind gusts were 195 miles per hour, and at least 300 homes and businesses were destroyed in Rolling Fork itself. And this tornado was a beast. There was significant ground scouring around the town, in the forest. I mean, it was absolutely devastating. It looked like a bomb went off in this town. And unfortunately, many of the residents there was some warning issues and technicalities, but we had the storm chasers on it. They knew that the tornado was on the ground, but they came up to, unfortunately, a scene that you never want to come upon. But before we talk about that, and the reason why we're having this panel is to just give you some insight to the power of you as a storm chaser, not only ground truth, calling in tornadoes and reporting them, but how you can help people in the time of their greatest need. And I'm going to pass it to you, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we're doing this. Alrighty. So I've been doing this 22 years. I've never been in a situation like this. I was involved in more, El Reno, and all these situations of rescues, but this was a situation that I've never been a part on where we had no help. Okay? Raise your hand if you were there that night. Yeah. Raise your hand if you put somebody in your vehicle and took them to the hospital. Look around. You made a difference. Okay? All those years of storm chasing, I've never been in a situation where I felt helpless. But you can't stop at that. You have to continue to help. Okay? No matter what. I'm going to talk about the tornado. I'm going to let Jordan talk about the tornado briefly, and then we're going to move on almost chronological here. I started out not even in that target area. I come from the north. As we know, that storm was coming out of Louisiana. Everybody was watching it. And then something just told me, hey, go south. Well, unfortunately, the storm was moving at 58 miles an hour, I believe.
Yeah, pretty quick.
And I couldn't catch it. I ended up on the north side of the tornado. It was moving so fast. I made the correct decision to stop about 2 miles north of Rolling Fork. My car was vibrating from that tornado. I've never had that happen, being that far away. The sound, you could hear it going through the town and the destruction it was creating. It's one of those tornadoes that I will never forget. I was part of El Reno. This is now going to be probably my number 2 tornado. Did I see the tornado? Absolutely not. But I felt it. And so they're going to be telling a story living through it. And it's a situation that we all need to understand. We love this. We love being a part of it, but it's affecting people and in people's lives. Okay? People died that day. And so I just want y'all to remember that when we're talking about this today.
So I was coming up from the south. Sierra and I were coming up from the south on that storm, and we started getting the lightning barrage as it started becoming night, and I was kind of getting apparent that the storm was getting stronger as it was crossing over the river delta, and we were streaming live on the Weather Channel that night, and we were just on the south side of town, but we couldn't see it. But we were getting reports. We had a large tornado ongoing just to our west, and it's crazy because for a lot of chasers who were just south of town, you couldn't see it because it was pouring rain in around from the south side. And I believe even Reed Timmer was down there too, and he stopped too because he knew it was there, but he couldn't really see it. There's got a lot of rain pouring around. But just not too far ahead of me, we have Freddie McKinney, Aaron Rigsby, those guys, and they have a clear shot looking southwest at it. So it just shows just a little bit off on positioning is the difference between seeing it and not seeing it. And you got a tornado moving almost 60 miles an hour. It was still probably half mile off to our west. We're just south of Rolling Fork, and it is the loudest tornado I've ever heard in my life. It really was. And that's when we decided to stop. We were like, large tornado off to our west, and that's actually when tower goes down. No more service, streams are all cut, and dead air from there, and we continue from there.
Eric, I want you to talk about your experience.
Yes, sir. So we came out of Vicksburg. We were headed north on US 61, headed straight into Rolling Fork, and we rolled the windows down, pulled over on the side of the road, and we seen the lightning going off, and then myself, Joe, and Randy, you could see the edge of the tornado, and we're like, that's it. And then so we started driving north again to get closer to it. So we let we let the rain, and the southern rear flank pass in front of us when we crossed the road, and we sat there for a little while. Creeped into town. We was live with LSM, and yeah. And then right after the tornado passed, we just rolled right on into town. As soon as we got there, ran over a few 2x4s, and we just went to work doing what we do. And then the chase was over at that point.
So just a little background on Eric. I mean, he's got a lot of the same military training I got. We started off at the same, MOS. So I know where your mindset is, right? So same thing, right? I come in, tornadoes fresh 30 seconds, and some of y'all heard this story yesterday. I literally take a right on the highway coming from town, a small section of town that wasn't affected, and there's a lady walking across the road with a piece of telephone pole going through her arm with arterial bleed, which is why what I did yesterday was stop the bleed. That was my first experience within 30 seconds in that town. Okay. Losing blood. Next thing I know, there's a cop. Windshield gone. I'm a police officer. He was stunned. And I just go into mode, help. Help the police officers start getting organized. There was no firefighters. There was no fire department. I believe you guys pulled the fire chief out of his house.
I think it was Chief of Police.
Chief of Police, yeah. So just imagine this scene. There's no help for an hour and a half. It was 2 hours before the first ambulance left the town. Okay? And I told this story yesterday. It's up to us to help. So here's what we're going to do. Got a little video. I'm in the scene on the street, helping the cops. Eric Toll comes up. Eric, I need you. And he was ghost white. Eric, I need you. What's going on? I've got multiple people trapped under this roof. I don't know what to do. We're going to play the video. This is Eric. Pause. You hear the female voices? Sitting right here. These two ladies. These three here are underneath. Can you go forward a little bit? Stop. See where the guy with the blue jeans is standing? Go forward a little bit, actually. Right there. Stop. You see what this right here, the silver-looking thing? That is a freezer, industrial-sized freezer with 4 people in it. See the 2x4 that he's holding on to? That's the difference between them being alive and being dead, holding that up. So I'm coming up. Eric shows up. We come around. Stop. I'm so proud of Eric right here. You know what he's doing? He's comforting. I'll let you guys talk about your experience at this point. You guys can start from the beginning and go all the way through to it.
Okay, that's the first time I'd seen that, so sorry, I'm a little...
Come up a little closer.
That's the first time I'd seen that video, so there's things I remember that night, and there's a lot of it's kind of a blur. You know, where we live, we have lots of tornado watches, warnings. It's something, you know, we're used to. Had been paying attention to the weather all day that day, but some might think it's irresponsible to think we can go and have a dinner at a restaurant that night with the weather, you know, threats that we were having. But it was our local school's prom, and April and Brad's oldest daughter had gotten ready to go to the prom, and we decided after Molly Ruth and I went over to see the girls, Minnie that babysit Molly Ruth, to take pictures, and we decided we were going to go eat. So we had gone to the local restaurant, sitting down at dinner. Our phones were, you know, we were watching the radars, the things that we saw. We did not, you know, I guess they weren't updating as fast as probably the technology that you all have. We did not had any idea what was, you know, coming towards us. So Molly Ruth we were trying to get out of the restaurant. People were telling us to stay. It's going to go north. Just stay put. We finally decided to get up and try to pay to leave. And where we were located was pretty close to the bathroom. When we were trying to check out, the lights blinked one time and then came back on. Our cards wouldn't go through. And then I turned around. We could hear like a small crackle. Anyway, the front of the restaurant, the glass was starting to spread, and then I just felt everything blowing in on us. Grabbed April, threw her in front of me and my daughter, and we did make it to the bathroom, as y'all saw. And, you know, I don't know. It wasn't the typical train noise that you always hear. I don't remember hearing that. It was just, I remember hearing lots of crackles, crashes. Somebody told me afterwards, you know, well, you're in the bathroom, it's the safest place. And it was, you know, we're here, and I'm thankful for that and thankful for all of you, because we are. But I remember them saying after Katrina, you know, the toilets, that's why they always went to the bathroom, because the toilets didn't move. But the velocity of the storm, we were in a building that there was a Mexican restaurant and a Subway, and the bathroom was in the middle. And one of the things I just do remember is the toilet breaking and the smell. And when they pulled us out, we were across the restaurant. Everything's still with us, but it, you know, literally pushed the whole building with us, and they pulled us out on the grass. I remember being very confined. I remember a whole lot of weight on my back.
So I want to tell a story right here. You're a hero. And I don't use that term loosely. You see the freezer? You see the wall, you see the roof. Probably it's raining, so all the sheetrock that's in there is wet. She held it up. She was what was stopping that from crushing them, and held it with her back for 45. Well, from the tornado hit, over an hour. I've done my background in public service and whatnot. I've never had somebody have so much will and fight to protect their daughter and their loved ones. It's an honor to be even on the stage with you. And so I'm gonna continue to tell this story because it's almost a God thing for me. It's crazy because, okay, so I get over there and I'm just trying to assess the situation. And we had another gentleman. I'm not sure who this is. I'm not sure if you know who he is. I believe he worked at the restaurant. I just don't know who he is. He was very good just being strength, right, and helping me. But the refrigerator was the key piece to this. I can't just move the refrigerator, because if you move the refrigerator or the freezer, that thing probably weighs, I would say, 4,000 to 5,000 pounds, I guess. I don't know if some of y'all that work in the industry might be able to tell me that, but you're talking about a roof. You're talking about all that. You're talking that weight probably 4,000 to 5,000 pounds, I would guess. I mean, you had a little bit of help with that 1 2x4, which is the one I did not want to move. The first thing, like I taught yesterday, was to assess the situation. And then assessing the situation, and this goes for everybody in this room, you can make a wrong choice by trying to make a good choice. If you do not assess the situation and just start ripping stuff, you can kill people. That's why I stress training. Stress it, I stress it, I stress it. I train and train and train. I'll just go look at PowerPoints and just remember stuff. Let's do it all the time. This situation was one of those situations. We come up, and these two gentlemen here, and I don't know where you were at. I knew you were there. I just don't remember where you were at. But
he was in the car with the other guy that we pulled out of the pickup.
Yeah.
Wait till Frank got there.
I told this story yesterday. Somebody, and I don't even remember who it was, got hit by the tornado, chaser-wise. Actually still had connection to the National Weather Service chat. That was our only means of communication. We had no phone. We had no internet. We had no streams, other though your stream lasted for a little bit. I think it was that little spot kept it together, right? Yeah. And we were able to get a message out. And that was as I was passing to go in. And then I remember saying, hey, I'm going to need heavy rescue. And I told Eric, I'm like, we're not going to get it. And so my first thought was move that freezer when I saw it. But I had to get the people out. And Joe over here, I climb up on the side over, not on it. There's another piece of sheetrock over here. I was on top. And if you look, the top is, the hinges are towards us, and so the handle is down. I can't lift it up because there's a 1,000-pound I-beam running across it, and there's no way to lift it. The only option I had was to take off the hinges and then try to pry it up. The 4 gentlemen that are in the freezer speak Spanish. I speak no Spanish. So trying to communicate, to help, to try to push, whatever I could do. I look at these two and I say, I need help, I need a drill, I need a screwdriver, I don't care, we're going to have to pry it. This is a God thing. He walks 40 feet. There's a drill sitting there with the bit I need and a full battery. You tell me that somebody wasn't there helping. This is my opinion. I just looked at him, I was like, wow. It sped it up by at least 30 minutes. This is being situational aware because he remembered walking by it. And I'll let you kind of tell that story, like what you were doing.
Yeah, so we were just like, man, the door's got to get off because the freezer was actually, when he was talking about the door was wedged this way. We couldn't open it because the freezer was this way. And so we started looking for anything we could do, probably got to pry this thing open. And I remember there was a pickup or something over there, and maybe it had a toolbox. I don't remember. Just all of a sudden I found a drill, and it was like, oh, crap, here we go, got this. Let's get this thing off, And we got there and we got the drill, we got the door off, and it was kind of funny. As soon as the door come off, the 4 guys that were in there, they bailed.
Oh.
They disappeared, man. I don't even know where they went. They didn't help. They disappeared, just like that, like they were gone.
It was like they crossed the border and took off. I'm telling you.
Man, they were like,
God.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, and so once we got them folks out of there, some other folks had got there a little whiles later, and we got enough of us there, and I don't remember how many people were there, but we lifted the thing up off everybody, and that's kind of went from there with it.
So I want, if you guys can tell your story at this point while we're moving the freezer, and if you guys want to talk about what's going on inside and what you guys are trying to do.
And keep in mind that Gwen had injuries. She was holding the weight of all of that up and had a broken leg and numerous other injuries for over an hour while they're trying to figure out how they're going to safely get everything off of them to save them.
Just the time that we were in there, at the very beginning, a few people came by and said, we were screaming, we were hollering for help, and they said, we can't get you out, we'll be back. And I remember thinking and just feeling all the weight and like, I don't know if I can do this. And I hope if we're right here, how bad is it outside, and are they going to forget about us, running into another situation? The way I was situated, I could only turn my head to the left, and I don't know how y'all know, I'm sure, but how much distance was between where we were. And I remember Eric sticking his head in. I remember his blue jacket and had the Weather Nation on there, and I was like, okay, these people know what they're doing. Like, somebody's here that's going to help us. And what's funny is the people that we didn't speak Spanish either, but we could hear them hollering Spanish, and we thought they were trying to get us out, and we were like, we don't speak Spanish. We had no idea they were in the freezer on top of us. There might have been some cuss words
at them. I'm just remembering that.
We thought they were people trying to get us out. We did not know they were stuck as well on top of us. But I just remember not a lot of space. I remember, an extreme amount of weight, hearing, 30 more minutes, that drill, because I was starting to pass out towards the end. I was looking at April saying, I can't keep doing this, and she was rubbing my head saying I had to stay awake. Remember trying to think you're going to have that Marvel moment, and I would, I thought, this adrenaline, I could do this, and there's no, I'm not that strong. I couldn't lift that off. My daughter, I think she's a hero. She kept everybody calm, more so than some of the adults. There was somebody else that was close to us nearby, but they did not actually go into the bathroom. But when, after the storm and the debris, that she was very close.
I think that was her husband that you met that was trying to get him out.
Yeah.
We thought about that.
And that's after we had that conversation. There was a situation, and this goes into.
I remember grabbing him when I was being pulled out for him to get back.
Yeah.
Gwen was not out, and I did not want him making it collapse on her.
And you guys think we understand. I mean, if my family, if my daughter's in there, I'm reacting the same way because he come in the situation where he started coming in and jumping on things, and sometimes you have to get control of people and say, hey, no, I had to get like cop mode on him, and I hated to be like that, but I knew what was going to happen if he started jumping on things. So, but it's going to happen, guys. This is a learning lesson for us all, right? That's why we're doing this. You're going to have people that cannot control emotions. There are certain times when their emotions need to be controlled, and that goes for us too. You go on there on this scene and start yelling and screaming and panicking. What are they going to do? They're going to yell, scream, and panic. Right? Chaos breeds chaos. Calm breeds calm. That's including when you're in the car chasing. When you got a tornado in front of you, if you're not calm, you're going to make bad decisions. So anyway, sorry, I got off on a tangent. But,
hey, Eric, I got something to add to that because the guy you were talking about, remember we talked about it last night? Well, was it his wife that was under the freezer?
Yeah.
I had to kind of tell her to shut up also.
Right.
That's okay.
Right. Yeah. So
she was hysterical.
The freezer was part of the freezer was sitting on her right here, and all I could see was her legs. And I reached in there and I tapped on her legs, and I said, "I can't hear anything, but if you're alive, move your legs." she didn't move a muscle. I thought she was dead. But and then to add to that, it was that guy was coming up and he was coming aggressive to Eric. And Randy's the one that saw this. That the guy had his fist clenched up like he was about to
It would
fight.
have been a bad day for him.
Anyway, it was something wrong, but like, I just remember when someone pulled me out by the waist, I was grabbing him by the shoulders, pulling him back.
Yeah.
You cannot go, stop. Because when Molly Ruth was out, Wynn was still in there.
Yeah, and we'll get, and that's where I'm going with this next, right? So can we play the video a little bit? I want to see if there's a big wide shot. Right there. Stop. Right there. Well, shoot, back up. It's okay. What you're seeing is we got the freezer off, but something happened with that 2x4. And Tim Marshall could probably explain this a little better than I can, the way that weight transfer is on structures, objects, and stuff like this. But it was crazy because as soon as we moved the freezer, everything else started collapsing in and started pushing on other people. So we got the weight off of you a little bit, and everything shifted on other people. And I started going into panic mode. Everybody just started. I knew the freezer was off at this point, so that was this point getting everything else off. And there was at this point 10 people there just ripping stuff off. I was worried about injuries, neck injuries, back injuries, which you had. Your back. I was really worried about your back. And once you get to the point of, okay, no, we've got to this rescue, we're getting people out, now you have casualty care. I remember walking up to you. I'm fine. I'm like, I don't think you're fine. Because I knew what, yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
sorry.
like, I'm fine. But you just needed to breathe and
I remember when they pulled me out, I just remember I couldn't walk because not just the injuries, but I think the circulation being cut off for over an hour because when I dropped when your foot goes to sleep, you can't get up and walk, and that I kind of would describe it like that. So I remember asking whoever pulled me out if I could just put me down, and I remember just laying in the grass. And I would have probably stayed there and napped a while if I felt like I was good.
yeah, if I remember right. And then you showed up about this time, correct?
Yeah, I was an hour away, north and east of the storm when I got the alert on my iPhone, and I've always been weather aware, and I'm kind of embarrassed in this situation because I wasn't watching this one. I thought this one missed us, and as soon as I get off my tractor and get in the truck, we get the alert, and I call April, my wife. I said, "Where are y'all?" "Where's the Mexican restaurant?" "Why?" I said, "Get out of there and get out of there now." "Okay, I got to go. Molly Ruth's freaking out." And that's exactly when it blew in on them. And I leave there, and I'm going to go a little longer than I apologize, but I leave there. And I have a communication blackout of about 15 miles in this rural area, which actually the tornado ended up passing over this part as well. And when I pop out on the other 15 miles of the communication blackout, my phone blows up. It's beeping, it's ringing, it's dinging, whatever it can do, it's doing. I'm getting all these messages.
He has two phones, by the way.
And one of them is my daughter back there in the back, and she's at the, stand up, Ryan. She's at the prom, and she's, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm on the way." Well, they tell me the Mexican restaurant's gone, and is Mom alive? I said, "Yeah, she's alive," but the whole time I'm trying to call her, it's not going to voicemail. It's just not ringing. The towers are down, and so that alarms me. And I have a son that's behind me in another truck, and I know we're headed right into the storm because I've had enough sport people call me. You got to tell a lot of people, "All right, shut up a minute. I just need to talk to one person." And I said, "Lead me through this." And I sent my son north. I said, "You go north until I tell you come south." Well, it hit Silver City and midnight. They're both in my path. And I'm screaming down this thing. I can see this beast in front of me. And I'm going 114 miles an hour. in rain and wind, and it's just lightning, blinding you. The truck's shaking, and this guy I'm on the phone with, Andrew Parrish, who I work with, he said, "You've got to get south of midnight. You don't have an option. You're driving right into it." So I made it south of midnight, and long story short, what he asked me about, I finally make it to Rolling Fork after I run out of gas, have to get picked up and get in another vehicle. And me and my other son, who was already at home, he meets me in the road in my truck, and we start jumping hackberry trees. That's the first tree that's going to go down where we live is a damn hackberry. I hate them. And so we're jumping hackberry trees, we're jumping telephone poles, and we get into Rolling Fork, from the exact place where Eric comes in and starts helping people. And you recognize nothing. The chasers that were there, y'all didn't know Rolling Fork. I grew up there. I've been there since 1985. I couldn't recognize anything. It's chaos. It's in the dark, still raining, power lines down, gas mains going off and leaking, water lines leaking, cars everywhere. It's like, I mean, you're in a war zone, and it needs to be treated as one. I mean, everything's active. You don't know if this line's hot. You got natural gas going off. You got to be careful. All that stuff you got to think of when you're not in the mode to think of that. And I wasn't in the mode. I was a damn mess. I thought I had put them into the storm. When I realized when I got there, I said, I've killed them. I put them in their car, in the storm, the worst place you can be, and they're in this. I'm not going to find them. I can't find the Mexican restaurant. Now, Rolling Fork's a small town, y'all. I got to remember that. I've been there my whole life. I'm 54 years old. I can't find it. I don't know where anything is because it's gone. It all looks the same. And we finally get almost to the Mexican restaurant. I get word that April's at the hospital, so we go back out of town and find out, nope, she's not at the hospital. We go back in. I'm looking, and no flashlight. Always keep a flashlight. I'm sure y'all do, but that y'all need to keep a good flashlight on you all the time in your vehicle. And I'm just lost. And I see this guy right here. Thank you all for what you do. It's huge. I want to use an analogy. I'm a big NASCAR fan. When I go to races, I listen to the scanners because I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on before it happens. So if there is a app that I can listen to storm chasers on during a live storm, that's who I want to listen to. I want the information before it happens, and you guys bring it. And thank y'all.
So I want to piggyback on what you said, right? I could tell you every chaser in here wants to be able to be that person that set that morning off and be an asset to the National Weather Service to help. That's why most of us do it. That's how most of us got into it, right? Spotting, kind of learning how to the basics, and just kind of looking out the window as a kid, 5-year-old kid. Hey, how does this work? And as you grow up, you want to be able to help people like you guys, so you don't have to go through this. I could tell you, everybody in here, that's our motive. It's expensive to do what we do, so we do sell video, we do things to continue to do it. But if you look, and we'll give you all this information, right, where you can see this. We have a tornado on the ground. What do you think, guys? 30 reports, 40 reports going out? Because we're trying to get the information out. And it's something that needs to be worked on as our group, and this is why I do this. This right here is why I wanted the summit, and why when ChaserCon ended, I'm continuing it, but we need to focus and have a central focus on how to get better and how to help held to help the National Weather Service. But it takes eye-opening experiences for that to happen. Your report matters. I don't care. And where's Rick? Is Rick in here? I know he was in here a while ago. Rick Smith, you're going to hear him talk later.
Oh, there he is. Yep.
How many reports would you want to get on one tornado? Probably as many as you can get, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think why we brought these beautiful people here today is to just show you how critical your role is when it comes to tornado safety, ground truth, and everything. I mean, as a broadcaster, when we watch your videos and we stream them on our networks, it changes the scenario. When you get a tornado warning, you're like, oh, okay, it's a tornado warning. We get, a bunch of them, depending on where you live. But when you actually see a chaser's video live on TV, that changes everything. People are texting their cousins, their friends, their loved ones, making sure that they are okay and aware of it. So everything that you do, you should know helps everyone, not just the National Weather Service. It helps broadcast meteorologists, and keep doing what you're doing, but make sure to do it safely. And I do want to ask for each of you, is there anything else that you would love to share with all the storm chasers and spotters that we have in the room that can maybe help us help people like you, anyone that's in one of these situations?
Continue to be present. That was our, past God, our next blessing.
I think so too, and I just want to say thank you, because not that all they all serve their purpose, but since the tornado and maybe the apps that I was watching not being updated, I'll be honest, when I hear storm chasers and where we live, it's not that you don't pay attention to it, but you're kind of used to it. But like you said, when storm chasers are coming to town, but it was one of those things that is an adrenaline rush, but y'all saved us. It's not just about the chase, it's after the storm, and with you being present there. And when we didn't have, we're in a community that doesn't even have a fire department, and your training and your willingness was such a blessing. And now, since the tornado, we've had a few warnings, or the Torcon threat is going to be this. I don't go to my apps anymore. I go to Facebook, and I go to your Jordan, your page, or I follow the storm chasers now. So before, because I feel like if it's going to be a serious threat, if they say it is, I know it's going to be. So I just want to, nothing to add, but was just thankful, and I'm grateful for what you do.
So I'll go back to 2010 in Yazoo City. You guys were there hours before it hit, and in one of these neat storm chasing vehicles, it looks like an army tank. So
he's sitting right back there. His name's Reed Timmer.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to know where that damn vehicle is at all times. So if it's south and west of me, hey, I'm gonna be looking for y'all, and I'm gonna fire the grill up. So y'all call me when y'all get close.
Yeah, we did tell Eric after we connected a few weeks after the storm. Someone had sent a video that was on on television, and he said he was really wondering how a lot of people were doing, and in particular was the little girl in the Mexican restaurant. And when I watched that video, it was so nice to have that media connection, because I don't remember, I don't know who was there that night. Still don't know who pulled me out.
I remember seeing you, and
I wanted to know.
But I didn't realize how many other people were there.
I got to put that on Eric, because Eric's the one that, as I was busy, he still tried to help. I mean, he's still getting more people. I told him, I was like, I need people, and he made it happen.
Yeah, we were told later, once he knew we were under control, he left and went to the next place to search and rescue, and that's what we really wanted to reach out to him.
And I don't know her name, and her name needs to be mentioned, the owner of the restaurant.
Yeah.
Norma.
Yeah, Norma.
She was amazing too.
Yeah.
Because if she wouldn't have kept those guys calm in that freezer, it would have been hell.
Yeah. And that's, we're talking about the vehicle, when we connected with him a few weeks later, he said, is there anything we can do? And we said, well, next time there's tornado threats, y'all come and y'all can stay here, light up the grill. I was like, but yeah, you can sit. I want direct text messages. Like, can we direct text message you?
Yeah.
And, like, do we
After this party the last couple of days, are you sure you want to do that? Because this is what you're going to do.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anytime.
So I believe Brett had something he wanted to make a comment.
Check. This is personal for a lot of people in this room. There were so many. The guys on the stage, they did an excellent job. You guys, you're all heroes for what you did that night. This is like a therapy session for a lot of us. For me, we can't, as Eric and all the guys said, we can't really get emotional when you're out there in the field because we got to have our eyes on what's in front of us, what was in front of you. As a husband, as a father, you pulling into that situation. Can't imagine what you're thinking, but your first thoughts were you got to find your family and basically go to work. And, Sharkey County out there in the Mississippi Delta, as you mentioned, don't even have a fire department there locally, right? So, volunteer fire. Police department hit.
But the problem, like you said, within that all their houses are gone.
Right. So they've got their own personal stuff that's going through their mind too, and they're like, where do we even start the help, the triage, all those things? And, we talk about mass casualty type events. That event, when it hit Rolling Fork, it set off a chain reaction too. I was in Silver City with some other folks because Silver City, as you mentioned, you were trying to get through there before that tornado plowed through. We were in Silver City. Once the help got to Rolling Fork, set off a chain reaction because, as you said, so rural out there, you don't have anything, volunteer fire. We were out there an hour and a half waiting on response as well. So that's where the training, pound training, if you guys are going to be out there, and I know a lot of you that were in the field that night, a lot of you helped people, and you all deserve the credit for that. Everybody in the room that was there deserves credit. But the training's so important because that response, it set a chain reaction. It went up midnight, Silver City. They got hit too, and literally when you see people walking, they're in shock. And you got to help. You can't keep moving. You got to stop. If you're filming, you got to put the cameras down. You got to go help. And that's just so interpersonal. That 7-day period, I think that was the most active stretch from that to the Arkansas to Tennessee, the 31st that got hit. It just brings back a lot. And you guys coming to tell your story, that took a lot of courage because a lot of people don't want to relive that. And I personally appreciate that because, again, for a lot of people, it's like a therapy session.
So I got to tell a funny story, though. So we get them out. She didn't know it. She didn't remember it, but I remember it. And I laugh about it still. She did not want to get away from her mother at all. And I was worried about her injuries, and I was worried about her mom. I didn't want her mom to lift anything. And so I pick her up to go sit her down on the truck bed. She kicked me right in the belly.
Well done.
She wanted her mama. So you imagine being your age, and I know you're so scared of weather, but just know you've got hundreds of people out here that you can always ask questions to try to help you, okay? All right?
And I just have to say, so I was at the Weather Channel that night working actually behind the scenes. We were watching everyone's streams until we couldn't watch anymore. And it was what you storm chasers do, and I can't stress enough, is so critical to how we portray everything on air. Yes, we get the warnings, but we have the NWS chat where we go back and forth, and it's something that is absolutely priceless when we're trying to save lives, because that's absolutely what we're trying to do. But I do have a question for turning it now to the chasers here on stage. Obviously, Rolling Fork, but and we talk about this a lot, equipment and everything that you should have. What are some of the key things just we've got a lot of young chasers out there, maybe they're less experienced than you. what are some good tips that we can share to ensure that, like you said before, you've got the adrenaline, right? You're on, a storm, and then it devastates a town. You still got that adrenaline pumping, and it's easy to make, you want to save as many people as fast as possible. But like you were talking about, Eric, if you make that wrong move of moving a piece, whether it's a piece of roof, plywood, it could cause you to accidentally kill someone if they're underneath it, just because the balance of everything.
So like I said yesterday, if you're not comfortable doing something, don't do it. Find somebody that is. The number one thing you could do, and that's why I'm so proud of Eric, reassure. I'm here. I'm going to get you help. And keep that motivation going. How much did that help you? A lot? He didn't move. All I heard the whole time Eric was in there talking to him, keeping him calm. That's helping. That's the number one thing you could do, is reassure. If you are not comfortable doing something, don't do it if you're not. I have a whole another aspect of that, because I saw chasers drive right through the town when I have triage of critical patients that we could have put in your car and moved. That you can do something. Okay, that's the basic. From there, you told me something at my house right after that I was so proud of you for. Stormfront Freaks. Mm-hmm. Gave out basic medical stuff last year at the summit. Sierra used it that night. Was it that night that you used it? I believe you told me it was that night.
Yeah, Jordan and I ended up using that equipment that night.
It was gauze. It was what I call 4x4s gauze. Tourniquets. So Stop the Bleed was amazing yesterday. Sorry about scaring everybody when I was yelling.
I believe gloves.
Gloves.
Very important.
Yeah, gloves. Hard hat if you can carry it. Boots. I carry boots on every chase. Pants. Long sleeves. I know I was solid wet. I mean, I was soaking wet. I didn't care. I had somebody that we had to help. Don't put yourself first in this situation. Worry about them, right? I have in my car, I usually carry chains. I carry ropes. I carry tie downs. Just whatever you can get. That night, I didn't have all that because I was not supposed to chase. My boss ain't in here, hopefully not watching. I was not supposed to chase that day because I had to be in Waco for another thing for work. And I'm like, I could do this. 12-hour drive back, 12 hour, I won't sleep and I'll get to work. And I didn't have everything I wanted in my truck. And I was kind of disappointed, but just basics. I mean, I don't know what else you guys carry. Flashlight also, which was mentioned.
I shortly before Rolling Fork, I made an investment in some good work boots, but I also found these puncture-resistant insoles that I could put in my boots, and those were a savior on the night of Rolling Fork because I was able to walk through so much damage without worrying about stepping on any nails or anything like that. So I always recommend that to chasers.
I didn't have gloves, and I cut my hand that day holding back the roof. I mean, like, puncture-resistant gloves is probably going to be 3/4 of everything you're going to want to do to continue to work. Because if your hands are bleeding and you can't use your hands to work, then you can't continue your mission.
Yeah, okay, the first aid kit is a huge thing, and then obviously all the stuff that was included there, but kind of going to what we went into.
Yeah. So what we're going to do now is kind of transition, and we're going to have a question session here. So even though we were on this side of town, there's a whole other set of chasers that were on the other side of town doing crazy work, and Jordan kind of led that effort. I'm going to let him talk about that.
So Eric came in from the north, and then we were coming in from the south side, and we were behind Aaron Rigsby at the time. And we were kind of the first ones to come into town, and I remember being behind Aaron, and I think Sierra's like looking around. She's like, yeah, there's some damage here. And then we turn down the street, and the street, never forget the name of it, Walnut Street, Rolling Fork. And we're turning, Sierra's like, I think I smell gas. And Aaron has, if you know Aaron Rigsby, he's got light bars on his vehicle, and he turned it on, and everything's just, there's nothing there. You're seeing trees that are debarked. What looks like homes might have been there are not there anymore, and that hits a switch. I was a firefighter for over 6 years, and then for me that was like, what do we got to do? Chase mode, it's gone. I didn't know what the tornado was doing or if he was even on the ground anymore because it was just full focus. And I believe at that point, Rigsby jumps out, I jump out, Sierra jumps out. Actually, I had her grab my flashlight, and then me and Rigsby and Sierra ran in, and then I think Sierra turned around to go back to get another flashlight, right? Yep. So me and Sierra separated, and this was our first year chasing. That was our first nighttime tornado, and we kind of like separated right there. And me and Rigsby went and pulled the chief of police out of his house with his daughter and their wife, and we carried him over to another place, one of their relatives, and then we just started going to all the cries for help. And we came up on this house where you wouldn't think there'd be anybody in there, and we're hearing cries for help. And there's no walls, it's just a pile. And we're like, where is that coming from? And it's underneath. And that's when it was, we met up with Max Olson as well, and we just kind of took over and tried to figure out how to get in there. And it turns out there's a woman there, Miss Myra is her name, and she was an elderly woman, and she was sitting in a lazy boy, like one of the big chair, and she had her walker in front of her. And when that tornado hit, the only room for survival, I always talk about it in cars, you have a little room for survival, especially if you keep your seatbelt on. The only room for survival in that house was between that lazy boy and that walker. And when that tornado hit, it pushed everything forward. She fell to the floor, and the lazy boy folds over, and thankfully it's super cushioned. And it trapped her arm, but it was purely cushioned, and the whole house is holding on top of her walker. And she's pinned underneath this house. And that's kind of when we began trying to get access to her, but also trying to keep her calm. And Rigsby was holding my flashlight, and then I ended up crawling under the house, because we have a fridge, and I was making sure things were held up and wasn't just going to collapse. I was checking to make sure we weren't going to move anything just to make it all come down. And while I'm under there with her, we had somebody run up. I think it was a local. Started jumping on top of things, trying to throw things off. And there was a couple, I think, new chasers out there that were there, and they're like almost doing it. And then what was amazing was the chasers that have been around and have been around the block that have seen damage before were there to be like, actually, no, let's do this and direct them. And the second that happened, people kind of, there was a chain of command there, and it worked. And after, I think, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, we ended up pulling Miss Myra out from underneath her house. And I'm going to go over to Sierra, because she had a whole different world, because we kind of left her back there. And this is, a pretty good example of...
Yeah, so like he mentioned, we got split up pretty quickly when I went back to the car to get more supplies. And once I realized I was by myself, I kind of had a moment of intense panic, because like he mentioned, that was my first nighttime tornado, first year chasing. So I had about a minute where I started hyperventilating, panicking. I didn't know what to do, so I took a seat in our car for a moment, and then I realized, I have to get out, I have to help. And so I gathered myself together and just started going out. And I'm somebody, I do not have any first responder, first aid training, and I just started trying to make myself useful without that training. And, one of those things was actually providing shelter for some injured residents. There was a elderly couple. The woman was injured. I believe she broke her leg, and she was about to be set down on the pavement, and I overheard that, and I cleared out the back seat of our vehicle and was able to get them in there, get them dried off, which, another thing, I always recommend bringing towels. Got them dried off, and like as you did, they're pretty worked up and pretty upset. So I was attempting to comfort them and try and calm them down, and provided shelter for them. And once I got them comfortable, I went back out and started going from house to house and trying to treat more superficial wounds like face bleeding and stuff like that. But I always try and tell people, like, even if you don't have any first aid training or anything like that, like, there are ways you can help, whether it's treating smaller wounds or being comfort or even being a transport vehicle. You can help. And don't drive on by those scenes. Stop and get to work.
So within that, you can't help. I do have to make one, you have to say this. and I have to say this because I'm a cop, but there's an incident command system. When the higher care is there, or you have a firefighter that shows up that's there, or a police officer, obey them. They're the ones that are responsible. We're here as a bonus. So don't be an over hero, okay? When the local cops realized I was a cop, it was a different world. They're like, do what you need to do. But a lot of you people, they're going to be like, I don't know who you are, get out of here. Don't take offense to it. Say yes, sir, and move on. And there's a reason for that. They're ultimately responsible. And so they may be somebody on the way that you don't know about. So don't ever take it personal, okay? And this is from a cop that has to make those decisions all the time on a car accident. Hey, I thank you for being here, but can you go stand over there? You're correct. You can always help, but just remember, if somebody of higher power tells you otherwise, just stop. I probably should have started with that.
Hey, Eric, can I add something to that medical? So we changed everything after the Rolling Fork changed everything for us as chasers. And Randy was the biggest deal about this. He goes, we didn't know how unprepared we were until we was in a helpless situation. We've added a trauma bag, 2 Polis litters, cordless spotlights, cordless flashlights with extra DeWalt batteries on it. So we added a whole bunch of extra stuff to our arsenal now just because of the Rolling Fork situation.
And I do want to take, we have about 13 minutes left. I do want to take this spin a little bit. You know, it was a traumatic experience for you, helping people, each and every one of you, but obviously for you as well, living and going through it. And our next speaker, we have Rick Smith here, who's going to be talking about mental health, because as a storm chaser, you know how it is. It can be competitive sometimes, but the most thing that impacts storm chasers is when you roll up on a scene like they did in Rolling Fork. You see things you never dreamed you would ever see, horrific scenes, and there's families and there's children and utter devastation. And yes, you've got the adrenaline, you're helping out, but then things start to settle in of what you just witnessed. You can actually start processing it. And what's really important and critical if you're a storm chaser is having a healthy outlet. If you come upon a scene like that, and to be able to have conversations, someone you can confide in, other storm chasers to talk to. I know there's numerous apps out there, and mental health is now something that everyone feels comfortable talking about. But I would love to hear from you first, but then the chasers. How have you, found strength? It's almost been a year, but how positivity, knowing that, this tornado devastated your town, everything you went through, I know with injuries still, you're still recovering. How have you found peace within it all, within the chaos?
Just communication amongst one another. Gwen and Molly Ruth are our family. Gwen's husband passed away a few years ago. We were best friends, died of cancer, and we've stayed close. And you just have to use that family unit that we have to lean on one another. And April's had a hard time. I don't mind telling you, she's really emotional. She's got a long way to go. Gwen, I can't speak for her, but Molly is terrified now. But this is huge. And I'm in sales for a company named Helena Agri Enterprises, and you don't miss the annual sales meeting unless you have a death in the family, or you have to come to the summit. And I said, I'm not missing it. I said, thank you.
Well, you mentioned family. I think your family just grew.
Yes,
by 10
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she needed it. I knew she needed it. I wasn't going to miss it for anything. So you got to, we were all affected. They were there at ground zero where it ramped up to the strongest point. And again, hand of God is the reason they're here, and you guys. That's why. And thank you. But this is how we get through it, is support. And thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to start questions now, but I'm going to start with Brandon. He wanted to say something, and then we'll go to questions.
Yeah, I live about an hour from Rolling Fork in Mississippi and been chasing in the South for a long time. It's just now starting to see a lot of chasers starting to come down to the South. When you're down there, there's a high probability that you're going to have devastation at night at some point. And even if you don't have training for triage or stop bleed, your lights and your comms are two extremely important things. So even if you don't get out your car and you just leave your lights, I know I've, like Rigsby, set up lights all around my car, and you saw when I pulled up that night what it's like when you light the scene up. It helps first responders. It helps everybody else do the work that they do. And then also, I think Jordan pulled up, or I pulled up, I had Starlink open, and he had no comms, and I let him use the Starlink. And we set up Starlink comms with 2 different Starlinks in Rolling Fork for first responders to use that night. And then I gave one to the Cajun Navy, who I'm friends with them. I called and said, hey, get all your crew up here. First thing, 5:30 that morning, he got up from Louisiana. I gave him a Starlink system, gave him a setup point. They had their volunteers on point. Just those 2 little things. Even if you know nothing about first responding, lights and comms, most of us have better comms than the average people because we're used to trying to get that stuff out.
Even first responders in that area. I mean, that's the thing about it. It's like, unfortunately, when you're in a poorer community, those departments can't afford the systems that you really are up to date and need. Moore, Oklahoma is a different story because they've got $billions budget for their police and fire departments. Well, you guys probably had $10,000 just for community. I mean, it matters, like Brandon said. So if you can be an asset, that's why the service chat was a huge deal that night. I got the WCM there in Jackson reached out to me and said thank you for sending that message because they were able to get ambulances headed that way. So that matters. Charles has a question.
I've been back to Rolling Fork several times since the event and know some of the people. And I'd just like to remind you as storm chasers, a lot of times you're trying to put out warnings when you know there's a risk factor coming up. Keep in mind that in these communities, that's traumatic for them. Be sensitive to your wording. Be sensitive to what you're saying. Don't use Rolling Fork as a way to get more hits on your posts because these people have lived through it, and not just Rolling Fork, Silver City, these different communities. We need to be real careful in how we word things because it still every time y'all get a severe, I get people from Rolling Fork texting me going, how bad's Charles? What's going on? And it may not be real close to them. Be sensitive. Think about those kinds of things. And in those cases, maybe your likes or hits on social media is not as important as the trauma that they're going through once again.
Rick, go ahead.
Hey, first of all, amazing session. Thank you so much, you guys, especially from Rolling Fork, for being here. We need one of these at every conference and summit for sure. Eric, you talk a lot about training, and I appreciate all you've done. And you may have talked about this before, but FEMA has a program called Community Emergency Response Training. It's a 20-hour program, I think. I went through it years ago. But the things you're talking about, light search and rescue, securing debris so things don't fall, you learn that. You learn some first aid, fire, there's all kinds of things. It's a great course. I don't know if you've talked about that in the chaser community, but it's offered in communities. I think you could do some of it online, but it's the one I did was very practical. They actually smoked up a fire tower where they trained firefighters, and we got to go up and do some, pulling people out. And so I think it's valuable. There's a lot of elements to it that I remember that are valuable to all the things you've been talking about. If you show up on a scene, it's designed for neighborhoods. You know, if you take care of yourself before first responders get there, but it sounds like it's very applicable to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, I don't know where Ryan's at. He'll probably start cussing at me, but we are redoing our webpage as soon as we're done with this summit, and I'm actually going to have a resource page dedicated to that. I got to shout out to their office. The Norman office is the standard for putting stuff out like that, right? It is great, and check your local offices, National Weather Service offices, to be able to see those resources, because he's right. CERT is probably one of the best resources out there. Just anybody can go to, and it's the basic, and you will know what is going on. It's so detailed, and as a police officer, say the town I work in, if I know you're CERT certified, I can lean on you, right? So I see people shaking their heads, you've got it, right? So that's something we're going to do at the summit, to get that resource page up, and that way we can know and send links to you guys or click on links. That way you guys can at least have somewhere to go to learn how to do this stuff.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I am a USPS rural mail employee, and where I live and where I work, it's very, very rural. Rolling Fork could have been Leonard, Texas. We have volunteer fire department. We rely on the county sheriff. As somebody who comes from a community, also a community that's as rural, if there was something that somebody you see every day that does weather could have done to help prepare you better, what would you have asked them to do?
I don't know that we really have anybody locally that I would say that we look up to for that information. We actually use the Weather Channel, those outs and things. And I guess in my mind, we do have Mississippi Emergency Services, which I had contacted that day because I was also with a group of other parents, or a few other parents, making the decision whether or not we were going to have prom that night. Because our children their junior senior prom was about 15 miles away, and which of course the whole area was under a warning, but we had reached out to different avenues and everywhere trying to, what decision do we make, right or wrong, and everything was like, oh, it's going to be gone by this time, and we looked at the weather, future radar, like, oh, it's just going to be a normal storm. Matter of fact, before my daughter left to leave, I said, let me look at the weather. We were sitting there as she was leaving, and I said, you're good, baby. I said, it's about 10, 11 o'clock. We might have another little system come through, and it's probably going to be heavy rain. I'll let you know if you're going to drive home or if I need to come get you. And we went to eat, and that was that. I don't know that we do have someone that pulls the alarm and or the tornado siren, and he was in the process, from what we understand, of doing that as it hit. There was just not, I don't know where the breakdown went. I don't feel like that I didn't take precautions. That I brushed it off or anything, but
if there is, I'm asking the experts in this room, based on what you asked, how y'all can better inform us. First off, we'd like to know what apps you keep on your phone, what you rely on, and I want that. And again, if it updates, and again, I want to know where you guys are. Really, I do.
I'm a big proponent, and just to go there because of time here.
Sure.
I'm a big proponent of, and Rick will probably talk about this, or if you want to talk to him personally, I know he'll do like the National Weather Service. Though you can never be wrong. go to your local National Weather Service page and go off of it. I'm going to be honest with you, in your community, that's what I tell everybody. Because those of us, we kind of have a tendency to amp things up needlessly. So I tell my community and my people, go to the National Weather Service, follow their Facebook page, go to the, trusted sources. And I hate to say that, but it's true, guys. Is it not? Everybody, because what do we want to see? We're going to naturally amp things up needlessly. It scares the crap out of people. So goes to back to what Charles was saying. Tell your community, hey, anybody can get on the National Weather Service page, and they will break it down for you. I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes if I'm lazy and I want to look at my own forecast, where am I going? What is Rick doing today? What is he saying? And that's just the way I am. I mean, and I think as a community, if we did that, we would be better.
I do have to say really quick, I think the decision you made to have prom saved dozens of lives because that prom was held 15 miles away. So that decision was the most critical decision of the day, that you guys still had prom. Because imagine if you guys canceled prom, the children would be in the town, and they weren't. So you saved so many lives, and you should know that.
We got one more question over here, and then we're good.
So I'm Ben McCone. A little history of me. I've been a firefighter and EMT for 10 years from South Carolina, now in Oklahoma. I was there in Rolling Fork, and something that hasn't really been touched on that I think is important, not only training, but mental preparedness to enter scenes like that. I'm horrible with public speaking, so bear with me. But I was right behind Jordan. In fact, my dash cam was like a security cam for his car. He got people accidentally entering his car. But we went down Walnut Street while they were kind of in that area. So our interactions with the people were a little bit different. I encountered about 20 people, 10 of which were deceased. So you have to prepare for that when you're coming into scenes like that. It's not always going to be rescues. It's not going to be happy times. You're going to see horrific injuries, and you have to prepare yourself to see that, as well as understand the gravity of the situation that other people are in around that. You're coming in and it's random people that you're seeing that are horrifically injured, but that might be somebody's wife. You're dealing with that. And we dealt with a lot of newer chasers that really hadn't experienced that before, so they were more focused on maybe it being more like a movie. It's not real life. They don't understand that when people are screaming, it's because they're in a horrific place, and it's not a time to go through and film. If you're there, you're supposed to be helping. You're going to be working through things. If you don't know what you're doing, please find people that do, or stay back and provide extra resources like Eric said multiple times. Brandon mentioned lights. You can do things like that without entering if you're not prepared. So that's one thing: training, mental preparedness, and then supplies, medical, boots, lights, all that.
Yeah. Well, Jen, I think this is exactly what we were hoping for.
Yeah.
Our message, and thank you guys. What you're doing for us here is invaluable, and I appreciate you making the trip. I really do, and I know you didn't have to. I'm very appreciative.
Thank you, Pat.
We just have to say thank you guys so much. Just the stories and everything. Yeah.